Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. It is Monday morning, it is the morning show, and we have got a jam-packed show for you this morning. Coming off the back of a 3-0 win at home at Old Trafford, 3 consecutive Premier League results in a row. We absolutely love it. So, starting off, we're going to be talking a little bit about Erik Ten Hag and his demand to INEOS that he wants more money to spend in the transfer windows and he wants to have control over it. He wants assurances. Ten Hag wants more. Also, a little bit about Diallo's role in the team, how Ten Hag sees him fitting in, and other news coming too. Also, everyone, I know you've all heard about it because I saw the shows last night, and you know, all I'm going to say is something very, 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 very exciting is premiering at 12 p.m. this afternoon on the United Stand. Something very, very, very exciting is premiering at 12 p.m. I can't wait for it, and you guys can't wait for it as well. So trust me when I say it's unbelievable. But let's get into the morning show, and let's start off because when this news initially came out, a lot of people are talking about it as if it was a negative, but it is a massive, massive positive. And what is coming out is that Erik Ten Hag wants answers from Manchester United's board after this January transfer plea was ignored. Erik Ten Hag feels like there's been a lack of consistent backing in the transfer market to reshape his Man United squad. He inherited despite being handled $400 million. So Erik Ten Hag, this is coming from the Mirror, by the way, and the Mirror have been very, very close to Erik Ten Hag since he... Oh, sorry, 1 second. Let me just do my mic. Sorry, guys, I'm being told that my mic's off. Let me get into this. There we go. I'm back, everyone. Sorry about that, if the volume or the mic disturbances when we first started off. But anyway, let me restart that sentence. So, Erik Ten Hag wants answers from the Man United board after his January transfer plea was ignored. Erik Ten Hag feels like there's been a lack of consistent backing in the transfer market to reshape his Man United squad he inherited, despite being handled $400 million. And this is coming from Simon Mullock at the Mirror. And as I said before, the Mirror has been very, very close to Erik Ten Hag since he came to Manchester United. A lot of the news that they initially got was really accurate. It's tailed off slightly, but they still are really good when it comes to news coming out directly from Erik Ten Hag. I don't know, well, I mean, they must have some good sources in and around him, but it's usually been good, and I can imagine this. I can imagine this from Ten Hag. We know when he came into Manchester United, he wanted a big promise that he was going to have major say over the transfer windows, and everyone at the time was really excited. And then the signings of, you know, Antony happened, for as an example, and then people was like, you know, Erik Ten Hag, maybe he should have less say on the transfers. So Erik Ten Hag wanted that big demand on transfers when he first came in. When he signed the contract for Manchester United, he had a 3-year contract. There's talks of a new contract, or there was even talks of INEOS maybe getting a new man in the summer. But Erik Ten Hag himself apparently wants some sort of confirmation and assurances that he's going to get more money to spend and he's going to be backed. He's not happy he wasn't backed in January. That was down to financial fair play. But he said in the press conference himself he wanted a striker. He doesn't feel like the squad is good enough as it is. And to be honest with you, he's absolutely right. And I agree with Ten Hag wanting to spend more money. And people will say, he spent $400 million. That's what you get from rival fans every time. Well, it's not Ten Hag's fault that John Murtough couldn't do a proper deal for Antony and get him for $40 million at the start of the window. He paid double. It's not Ten Hag's fault that Rasmus, as good as he's been, should have been max $40 million and we ended up paying 72. Like, we've had such poor negotiating. Casemiro's another one, 70 million. It never should have been that. We've had such poor negotiating under Ten Hag during his transfer windows that the money spent is high, but realistically the quality and the personnel you've got in doesn't match up to the amount of money that's been spent. And there's been some good signings. Martinez, again, overpriced, even though how good he has been. Like, it still was an overpriced signing. Højlund, brilliant. There's signings that stand out, of course there is, but there's also signings that have been poor. And you know, you win some, you lose some. I'm not saying Erik Ten Hag should be handed another $400 million to spend himself. That's not what I'm saying. I'm going to get into that in a second. But you can massively understand why he wants more money. The squad isn't good enough. The drop-off from the first 11 to the bench isn't good enough. You can see it. Like, the last 2 games, we've had Ten Hag's best 11 on paper, and we've played our best football we've played all season. We've actually looked like a team. You take a couple players out of that and we fall off a cliff. This Ten Hag's trying to build something and he can't build it with his hands tied behind his back and the same players in the squad that haven't been able to perform for him all season. So, of course, he's going to want more money. And, you know, people talk about Onana being a bad signing. Again, he has not lived up to 40 million. Absolutely not. Mount, we got told was more of a club signing, but Ten Hag seems to really back him and spoke about him highly in his press conference. I know a lot of you guys in the comments have wrote Mount off, and what I would say to that is, I don't think you should, you know. Of course, it's really unfortunate that he's been injured, but I think he is a good player. It's not as if he's played and been terrible. Like with Antony, he's had 2 seasons now, nearly. He's had 1.5 seasons. And if anything, he's got worse since last year. He's played. He's played a lot of game time, and we can watch him and think, yeah, he's not good enough. He's Man United. He's not Man United quality. With Mount, we don't know that because we've not seen him. We've seen him for a couple of games at the start of the season, but barely anything. So I think we need to actually wait till Mount plays before we judge him. But in terms of the payoff, this season it hasn't been a payoff because he's been injured, which is really unfortunate. But I do think he's a good player. I honestly really do. Beth, do we need a new keeper, says Rob Royston. It depends how, you know, Onana performs the rest of the season. But I thought Onana played well yesterday. I thought he looked confident, he looked assured, he made saves he needed to make. I thought his passing out from the back was good. I thought he played well. The trouble with Onana is you never know what you're going to get, and he's been poor too much this season. So we've just got to wait till it plays out, to be honest with you. But I really want to get into this Erik Ten Hag stuff and really discuss it with you guys. So I think we can all agree in the comments, we can all agree that when you look at Ten Hag signings overall, you look at what he's brought into the club, the average person would say Erik Ten Hag signings haven't been too successful. There's been some successful ones, but on an overall basis, not really. You look at all the ones he's signed and all the ones he's had input in, and I'll tell you now whether they're successful or not. And just because they're not successful now doesn't mean they can't be in the future. So you look at Ten Hag signings, you look at Eriksen, it was a free transfer, and for a free transfer, you would say it has been successful. You look at Lisandro Martinez, successful. You look at Casemiro, it's 50-50. It was successful for last season, and again, I thought he looked a lot better yesterday. And he's such a difference to have him back in the team. But the money and the contract we paid for him was ridiculously overpriced. In terms of as a player, I think it was success. In terms of the amount we paid and the contract we put him on, I mean that again is the people and the staff that are in Manchester United that don't have a clue when it comes to recruitment. So Casemiro, okay, yeah, I would say he's successful, but the money we paid for him was ridiculously overpriced and the contract was too big. Other players, Malacia, I mean, it was good when he came in. We've not seen him all of this season. So far, it's still it's not something that you say, yeah, that is massively successful. Højlund, for me, so far, successful. Mount, you can't say yet because he's not played. Onana, unsuccessful so far. Antony, unsuccessful. And then the rest of it, Johnny Evans, you'd say successful for a free transfer, but realistically, we should have got Kim Min-jae in, and we had to duck out of that. Amrabat, unsuccessful so far. But you look at the signings, and there's too many that aren't hitting. There's few that are hitting, Martinez, Højlund, you know, they're big ones that stand out, but there's too many that aren't hitting. And when you look at that, you think that's not a great success rate. And we know that Ten Hag's had a massive, massive say on transfers. He was huge on pushing to get Antony through the door. He was massively influential on getting Martinez in at the same time, though. Manchester United wanted to go for Pau Torres. We were linked to Pau Torres season after season. We wanted to go for him. That was the plan. Ten Hag came in and said, no, I want Timber. And then when we couldn't get Timber, he said, no, I want Martinez. So you've got to kind of take the good and the bad. But overall, as a manager, you can't really be having a 50-50 success rate. You've got to be more successful. There's going to be signings that don't work, by the way. And there's going to be signings that don't work. I mean, look at Liverpool. They've had the likes of Van Dijk and Alisson be super successful, but they've had the likes of Naby Keita, Minamino. They've had signings that haven't worked. Even Man City have had the odd signing that hasn't worked. I mean, it's rare, but they have had the odd one that hasn't worked. I mean, look at Mendy. I mean, there's other couple of signings you can name that haven't worked at Manchester City. I mean, Bravo, really, their keeper when he first came in didn't work. So every club has a couple of signings that don't work. Pepe at Arsenal for the amount of money they paid for him. But what you've got to be able to do is evaluate it and cut your losses and not hang around too long. If you know a player isn't good enough, you look each other eye to eye in the club and you say, look, this hasn't worked out the way we wanted to, let's move on and not make it something that's going to impact us more greatly than what it needs to do. But with Ten Hag, I think the massive thing of him getting more money, and if you said to me, are you comfortable giving Ten Hag full control and full power with another 400 million? I'd say, no, I'm not. He's not got a good enough success rate, and I don't rate his talent ID that highly based on his overall consensus of who he's brought in. But what I would say is I'd love to give that money to a sporting director working with Erik Ten Hag, just like the top clubs that are successful do. You know, Omar Barada's coming in as CEO. We're going to have a sporting director appointed. I think Ten Hag, if he works with a sporting director, he has a lot of say, but he also has someone putting the foot down, telling him, no, this is overpriced. No, this is more your profile of player. These are the options you've got. I think that could work. The one thing I would say on this is Ten Hag's absolutely right to want more money to rebuild this squad. I saw something the other day that was nearly half of Erik Ten Hag's signings at Manchester United have been loans or free transfers. And that is startling. Because a manager at this level, half of his transfers at Manchester United have been either loans or free signings. That shows how poor we've done business. It really does. So, and the drop-off from the first 11 to the squad is huge. So he's absolutely right to want more money. You know, to build a team that's going to compete at the top level, you've got to have to sell some of this squad and you've got to bring in better players. That's how you improve. But what he does need to do is take a little bit of a step back and introduce a sporting director, which hopefully he'd be happy to do, and work alongside him to spend that money and spend it more creatively in terms of not going for the biggest and boldest and huge price tags, but spend it in a way where you're recruiting properly. You're doing a dive in on the player. You're not overspending on the contracts. You're not overspending on the player. You're getting the exact right profile in. That's what needs to happen. So you know, you look at it and you think, with Manchester United, with Ten Hag, he absolutely needs more money, but he needs someone to help him guide him to spend that money, because we simply can't afford to have another Antony nearly 90 million situation. It just sets you way back. It sets you back in terms of financial fair play, in terms of budget, in terms of the squad. I mean, we've already seen the likes of Ahmad and Palistra's minutes been stunted because Antony's ahead of them. Is he really better? Like, I don't want to just go in on Antony, but this can happen when you get signings wrong, and we've already got so many signings wrong in the past. We need to now focus on getting the majority right, because the likes of the Liverpools, the Cities and Arsenals, they can afford one or two to go wrong, because you'll never hit every single one perfect. United can't afford that right now because of how poor signings have been in the past. We need to get everything right, especially with financial fair play. Karen Mater says, hi Beth, what we lack is a structure at the club. We need a sporting director to work with Ten Hag to make sure these problems don't happen again. Absolutely. If you had a good sporting director in last summer, we wouldn't have done it, not last summer, sorry, the summer before. We wouldn't have done the Antony deal. It just wouldn't have happened. We just never would have paid that. I mean, look at Omar Barada. I know he's not a sporting director, but when he was at the City Group, in terms of not overpaying for players, Man City, believe it or not, they were in for Fred, competing with us for Fred, do you remember, under Jose Mourinho? And do you know what? I actually think Fred would have been okay at City, but they were competing for Fred, and we massively overspent. 50 million for Fred was ridiculous. And Shakhtar at the time was popping champagne, if anyone's heard that story, when we paid 50 million for Fred. City never went up to the levels that we went up to, and we never should have gone up to them levels. As much as I love Pastor Fred, and, you know, he's kind of a little bit of a cult hero, we never should have paid that money. I mean, Shakhtar were popping champagne, for God's sake. And then you look at Maguire, another player that we're competing with Man City for. We went to 80 million, and Maguire had a good game yesterday. You know, I think he's a good centre-back, and I don't think he's as bad as what people make out. But he's never in a million years 80 million, not even then. He was probably max like 45, 50, max at the time, and that's when everyone thought, you know, he was going to go on to be like one of the best centre-backs in the league. That didn't happen. He's just a standardly decent centre-back. But City know where to draw the line. That's what happens when you have a good sporting director and a good structure at the club. We don't do that, and it hurts us in other areas, because then when you want to go for, you know, you want to go for a signing that's going to elevate you, and you don't quite have the money to do so, it's because you've spent poorly in other areas. And we've got Martin Saunders saying, Beth, yes, Antony's not good enough on the pitch, but he has great hair. To be fair, I like it when I like his blonde hair. It's decent, but I don't give one what your hair's doing. I want you to perform on the pitch, and that's where we're at. Rory C says, would you look to sell Antony? I think he has to be sold. If he doesn't improve between now and the end of the season, I think you've got to look at it. Garnacho's ahead of him massively. Rashford's a better player. I think Ahmad, personally, I would prefer to play him at the moment over him. And I want Antony to do well. I want that for every United player. But at the moment, if he can't improve, sometimes you've just got to cut your losses and say, it didn't work out. You know, I underestimated the level of the Premier League and you've not been able to do it. I mean, Omar Barada's coming in and one of his famous quotes is, you get 1 to 2 years and if you're not good enough, you're gone. Doesn't matter what the pay is. It doesn't matter what contract you're on. It doesn't matter how much we paid. We need to stop letting silly financial decisions impact us for years on end. You've just got to think, that was a mistake. It was of the era of the past. Let's move on from it. Now, especially now INEOS and Sir Jim's in, they can look at it and think, that wasn't our mistake. I think we just got to cut our losses with this, move on to the next chapter and think, we're not going to do that again. And there's no reason why Antony can't improve and can't win his place at Manchester United, because he's going to get the game time. Ten Hag's going to play him. And also, it just depends if Ten Hag thinks it's important. I mean, personally for me, I think if Antony doesn't improve, there's not a place for him in the team. There's not a place for someone you've paid near enough 90 million for. And the fact we took his wages from I can't remember, I think he was on 50 grand a week to 200 grand a week, again, it's mental. But we've got to be able to look back and think, that didn't work, let's move on. I mean, City, this is one I forgot before, City paid, how much did they pay for Calvin Phillips? Was it 50, 60 million if I'm not wrong? I feel like it was 50, 60 million. He's not barely kicked a ball under Pep. There's no pressure on Pep from above to be like, you have to play Phillips because we paid nearly 60 mil for him. And he's, an England international that the media absolutely love before he obviously went to Man City. And Pep's obviously earned his stripes. He's won a treble, for God's sakes. He's won leagues. So, you're going to listen to Pep Guardiola. Of course you are. But you should be listening to the manager no matter what. And you should be listening to... You should be looking at what they're producing on the pitch. And they're going to loan out Phillips to West Ham. They won't get the amount of money that they paid for him back. That was a rare City loss, to be fair. But they're not forcing him into the team. He's not hanging around. Like they're gonna eventually move him on, and that's what we need to do in terms of when signings don't work out. Akash Paul says it's amazing what happens when the team passes to each other. Reality is, Beth, they have invested too much into players. Hard to swallow that money hit. I mean, it's true. Like, we've wanted to not swallow the money hit so many times. It was 20k to 200 grand a week. That's ridiculous. It's crazy. What? Like, it's insane. You've added an extra zero onto his wage. It's per month. It's crazy. But Sancho's another one where we're going to have to take a loss on it if Ten Hag doesn't want to bring him back in the summer. You've just got to face up to these issues, and you've got to face them head on. You've got to admit that you've done wrong and hope it won't happen again. But on the money situation, there's more coming out from this, and I need to really get into it. Erik Ten Hag's future could hinge on how much money he is given to spend by Manchester United this summer. Ten Hag is unfazed by suggestions that he could be sacked, and that results over the next 4 months will decide whether Ratcliffe allows him to serve the final 12 months of his 3-year contract. Ten Hag's always seemed quite unfazed by the potential sacking. So many outlets and everyone said, fans have said, this is Ten Hag's on trial from now until the end of the season, whether he can keep his job at Manchester United. First half of the season has been atrocious. It's been terrible. Let's not get it twisted. The performances and the results. The last couple of games, we've actually put some performances together. The last few games, we've put some performances together. We've looked good. He's got his best team back, and things are looking like they can progress. There's looking like a future. You're seeing patterns of play. You're seeing fluidity. Okay, yeah, it's nowhere near the final finished article, but you can see the project. You can see the future. You can see the players Ten Hag's building around and the spine of the team he wants to bring forward, and that's exciting. Ten Hag's never really seemed fazed by the questions about his philosophy and the way he wants to play. He's always kind of stuck to his guns in a sense of what he wants to do. We've not seen the style of play so far this season, but you see it when he's got his best players available. And he's always stuck to the fact that injuries have massively hindered us. And I saw Mark speaking about, well, if Arsenal had Saliba out, City had Rodri out, and, you know, Liverpool had Van Dijk out till the end of the season, that had caused them problems. And it's absolutely true. And that's how much of a Martinez is a miss on us. Even a Casemiro, Luke Shaw, there's such important players that have come back into the team. And you can instantly see the difference. It not only does it elevate the team, it elevates everybody around them, because when you're playing with better players, it elevates your level. So it's huge, really. And Ten Hag's never seemed fazed by that. What is interesting is that Ten Hag himself, I mean, we don't know this is just reports coming out, might not even want to stick around if he's not given assurances over a transfer budget and that we're going to invest in this squad. And to me, that shows ambition, because Ten Hag knows that squad isn't good enough to play the level of football he wants us to play. He's got a starting 11. That is it, max. And even the starting 11 needs, you could argue, needs some improvements. And then, well, it does need improvements. And then you've got a bench and a squad that just isn't up to it. I mean, Scott McTominay is a decent, you know, last 10, 15-minute player, but taking Mainu off for Scott McTominay, it's a huge drop-off. Taking, you know, the likes of a Varane off for a Lindelof, it's a drop-off. You're taking the likes of a Luke Shaw off for I mean, we don't even have a left-back to play there at the moment. For a Lindelof at left-back, it's a drop-off. You're taking Casemiro off for Amrabat, it's a drop-off. You're taking Højlund off for nobody, Forsen at the moment, bless him, and you don't want to, and I mean, he's an academy kid, he's not even a striker realistically, he's a winger. It's a drop-off. You know, you're taking Garnacho off for Antony, it's a drop-off. And I know that, you know, you can't have a full strength 11 on your bench and a full strength 11 playing, even though City seem to do that. That's at the highest level. But you need a very good squad that have the same attributes, that are player-for-player substitutions. I mean, Mainu from McTominay, they're completely different profiles, never mind the quality. You know, you look at Martinez for a Johnny Evans, and I like Johnny Evans. He's done really well this season, but it's a completely different profile of play. We don't have anyone that can play like Martinez. So it's just like, it's not even the quality, it's just the style that Ten Hag wants to go with, and he needs money to develop this squad and to make us better and to ensure we have consistency across a whole season. He absolutely does. I mean, we've only got one striker. Martial just doesn't even count, he's that injury prone. I mean, we talked about, remember the days where we had, you know, Solskjaer, Sheringham, you know, you had all the players kind of that was, like, they were, like, Solskjaer was a super sub. He wasn't even a starter for us. And you had, like, 4 top-notch strikers training together. Rasmus, when he does the training with the strikers we spoke about in the forum, he's got no one to train with. He's the only one there. So we need investment into this squad. Ten Hag's right on that, but it's how much control he will be given. And I think what Ratcliffe and, obviously, Sir Dave Brailsford needs to do is they need to have a sit down and say, Ten Hag, you're our manager. Of course you're going to have input into the signings we make, but you're not going to have full control, because we've seen what's happened in the past and we don't think it's successful enough for you to have full control, and that's not the model we want to go down. We're going to bring in Dan Ashworth, who's had great results at Brighton and Newcastle. We're going to bring in Paul Mitchell, who has got a great CV at the Red Bull Group, at Spurs, at Southampton. And you're going to work with these guys, and we're going to bring players in at a good price, elevate them, we're going to progress them, the value's going to go up, and they're going to suit your style of play. And we're going to build, you're going to be able to build a great squad off the back of that, and you're going to have more money to spend, because we're going to get every signing right in terms of the money that we're spending, the wages that we're putting them on, and how it works from a football and financial standpoint. And to oversee all of that, we have Omar Barada, who knows his stuff inside out. That's how it's going to work, Erik. Are you in or are you out? That's if Erik, obviously, you know, Sergeant wants to move forward with Erik at the end of the season, which I think if we continue to build off what we're doing, I hope Ten Hag will still be there, because I honestly had no hope, and it's crazy what a couple of games can do. You don't want to get carried away. But I honestly had no hope, like, just before Christmas, like, none. At the moment, I had a sliver on based off what I'd seen last season from Ten Hag. On the back of a couple good games for us, and it's not just the fact we've won games, it's what I've seen us, how we've seen us play with a full strength 11. It's given me hope under Erik, and I hope he can continue it, to be honest with you. A lot of people asking for Martinez news. I've not got any. When we have it, we will bring it. The only thing I have on Lisandro Martinez is that he's going to have a scan, and at the moment it doesn't look too good. So it's frustrating. I saw somebody on Twitter the other day say, you know, with Martinez, if it's from what they've seen, I think it was somebody who was like, I don't know, don't believe everything you hear on Twitter, but it was to do with the type of injury it could be, and if it was what they thought it could be around a month for that sort of knee injury. You know, when he went down like that, I just hoped it wasn't like his meniscus or anything like that, because that is just out for ridiculous amounts of time. I mean, Malacia's had a knee injury and has been out all season. It's good that he walked down the tunnel. He seemed gutted though, he seemed disappointed. Ten Hag didn't seem optimistic at all in the press conference afterwards. So we just hope with Martinez that the scan comes back and it's okay, and it's just you know, impact, and it's something that he's going to be able to recover from quite quickly, because he's somebody that just elevates us to the next level. He's so important to the way we play. And the one thing I would say on Martinez is it's so crucial in the summer that we buy a centre-back that has the same sort of skill set and attributes that he does, because we miss him so badly when he doesn't play. And obviously, you know, I wouldn't say he's injury prone at all, because it's a completely different injury, and Soufal just landed on him. Like, I actually watched it back on Match of the Day and I thought it was quite naughty what Soufal did. I think he meant to go down on him. Obviously, Martinez is that sort of player where he's going to, you know, he's strong, he's going to stand his ground, and players don't like it. And I didn't like that from Soufal. He's now gone in my book of players I dislike, to be honest with you. I thought it was a bit naughty, and I'm gutted about it, but it's a completely different sort of injury, and it's just unfortunate. You know, anybody has a player like Soufal land on them like that and twist the knee, it's going to have an impact. So, but you need cover for that position. Coco's Revenge, welcome to the United Stand Members Club. A few people in the chat saying Diallo was man of the match yesterday. I give him man of the match on the forum. I thought he was great. He's developing so well. And I just don't get the huge amounts of criticism for him. It was also coming out from the MEN that INEOS has taken charge of the football operations at Man United after Ratcliffe paid the Glazer family 1.3 bill for a 25% stake in the club. They made it clear, this is the good bit, well, the important bit, they made it clear to Ten Hag that he couldn't even make a loan signing last month despite losing Antony through injury. It isn't the first time the Dutchman has been left frustrated. He was disappointed that United didn't offer the 75 million Barcelona were asking for his number one target, Frenkie de Jong, during his first summer in charge. So you look at that, and again, this is a source that's close to Man United. I mean, we all know that Ten Hag wasn't happy that we didn't get de Jong in. I don't necessarily think it was the money that was the issue. We agreed a deal in principle with Barcelona. If people actually rewind back, we agreed a deal for 80 million in principle for Barcelona. De Jong didn't want to come. Like, you can't force a player against his will to come to a club he doesn't want to go to. So that was where things went wrong with Frenkie. I mean, you look at the 80 mil we would have spent on Frenkie, and then the 80 mil that we spent on Antony. Like, it's crazy. Like, the amount of, like, the money and what you get back for your money. Like, Frenkie would have been an unbelievably good appointment, like, so good, but it didn't end up happening. He didn't want to come, and you can't force a player to come. So, I mean, that bit of the article, to be honest, doesn't make sense, because we did agree a fee with Barcelona. Frenkie de Jong didn't want to come, and realistically the manager should be persuading the player to come, and he's worked with de Jong before. It's something that Ten Hag should maybe have looked at, and why he didn't want to come, and why he needed to address that. And Frenkie always said Barcelona was his dream club. I mean, we beat him in the Europa League, and you know, they're not in a great place right now, Barcelona. So maybe did he make the wrong decision? I mean, look, United are in a terrible place as well, so probably not. You know what I mean? He's playing in the Champions League. But you look at it, I mean, I think he made the wrong decision, because I'm a United fan, and United comes above everything. But from a neutral point of view, like, Barcelona was the better prospect probably at the time. But anyway, enough on de Jong. I don't want to go back down that rabbit hole. I had enough Frenkie de Jong for a lifetime, genuinely, in that whole saga. But in terms of not being able to make a loan signing, that's due to financial play. And Ten Hag, he can be frustrated all he likes, and you can massively understand his frustration. Going into the later end of the season with only Højlund as a striker option is ridiculous. Højlund's great, but you need another option. You can understand his frustration, but his frustration shouldn't be at Sir Jim on INEOS, and I don't think it will be. His frustration should be the terrible planning and the people that have been in charge of Manchester United's recruitment and finances for the last over a decade, because we're still paying off terrible deals from years ago. Have we paid the Lukaku deal off yet? We're paying that off for years. Sancho is another one. Like, there's so many that we're still paying off because of terrible recruitment and not even being able to shift players for amount of money. So financial play is a backlog of horrible recruitment, and that's why the recruitment is such an important thing. I honestly think what will happen here, and get in the chat what you think, what you would like to happen with Manchester United. Would you want Ten Hag to have massive influence over the signings still like he wants? Would you want him to still be manager but have less influence? Would you want to bring a different sort of manager in that's kind of just going to work on coaching of the players, and you have a model where the players are brought in for them? What would you want to go down? What route would you want to go down? Because for me personally, this is what I want to happen. I want Ten Hag to build off the results we've had and the performance we've had in the last couple of games. Fingers crossed that none of the key important players to that system get injured, because that's when things start to unravel. We hope and pray and have our fingers crossed that Lisandro Martinez's injury isn't going to be too long and he's going to be able to get back into the team very, very quickly, and things will just kind of move forward and it won't be another setback. And you hope that Ten Hag builds and progresses, hopefully as far as we can in the FA Cup. I'd love to win it, but with the teams left in, I'm not delusional. I don't think we will, but to get as far as we can, and winning it would be unreal. And then get as far as we can close to the top four, or potentially even push that open. That's what I want to happen to Ten Hag. I want him to change people's opinions, and I want him to build for the second half of the season and show us what we should be looking forward to next season, how we're developing and what direction we're going in, and show where the plan is, what direction the project's heading in. He's developed these players in Mainu and Garnacho and Højlund. It's a great base to build around, but we need to build off that and keep going, and we need to build a team around that. And I want to see if Ten Hag, the last thing you'd want for me is, I feel like over the last few games we've seen a glimpse of what he's building, and you just don't want to completely wipe that out and bring a new manager in that's going to dismantle it all and start again. If Ten Hag can build off this, I want him to be the manager in the summer. I don't want him to have full control of the money, because I just don't think that's his forte. Based off what I've seen, his track history, I think you'd be a madman to give Ten Hag 400 million to spend all by himself again. I really do. But what I want is for him to have input on his signings. I want him to go to a sporting director and say, for example, I want a centre mid. These are the requirements of how I'm going to play my football and what I need from a centre mid. I need somebody to cover Martinez. I need someone to play alongside Martinez. I want them to be good on the ball. I want him to be able to, I want this. All the attributes that you want from a defender. I want them to be physical. I want this style of play. I need a striker to be a rotational player for Rasmus. This is a style of striker that is going to fit my system. He takes that to the recruitment, to the sporting director. This is why I want to get the sporting director and the head of recruitment in quickly, because this process should already have started now, looking towards the summer. Ten Hag gives his requirements, what position he wants, so he can prioritise what holes he needs to fill in his squad and how he wants his players to be able to play. He takes them to the sporting director and the head of recruitment, and they come back to him and they go, this is an option. We've got Todibo from Nice. He's can fill in on the right flanks the way that you want your right-sided centre-back to do. He's aggressive. He's good in the press. He's excellent on the ball. He can pass through the lines. We can get him for this price on this contract. It makes sense. And Ten Hag says, do you know what? Yeah, I really do want to go for that deal. Or he says, actually, no, I want something else. And then they come back and they say, well, that's too expensive. We've got this for you. And it's that kind of give and take between the manager and the sporting director. That's how a top football club should work. And I hope that's the way that we go. I really do. Somebody in the chat says, get Neto. Here's one for you. I want to do a poll on this, actually. So, producer, get the poll running. Would you rather, in the summer, if we were going to go for a right winger, get Neto or Elise? Who would you rather go for? And this is the interesting thing on the right winger. We keep getting linked to Elise. I can't see us going for a right wing under Ten Hag, because, he's got Garnacho's nailed down that spot right now. You've got Ahmad, who we're going to have a little bit of an update on him in a second. And you've got Antony, who as much as we all want him to kind of get moved on and we don't think he's going to be what we thought he was going to be, Ten Hag is going to stick by unless Sir Jim and INEOS put their foot down and say, no, we need improvement in that position, and what you've got in the moment isn't good enough. It is interesting, in my opinion. A lot of people saying injury prone. Neto obviously did have some poor injuries, but he's sort of coming through that now. And I actually was speaking to a Wolves fan who goes to every game, and he says that he thinks he's going to be better than what Jota was. He says he thinks he's ultra talented with so much potential. He's only 24. Yeah, he had some injuries that stunted him, but he's been able to maintain quite a good streak of being injury-free recently. Elise, a lot of people say you're injury-prone. I just think it's poor management from the medical team, what happened with Elise, to be honest with you. But get in the comments, because it's a tough one for me, because I think Neto is excellent, but I also like Elise as well. They're different sort of players. It'd be interesting to see kind of what direction. But I think that is absolutely the market we should be shopping in the Premier League. And I know people don't like it, but I mean, look at Mane, look at Van Dijk, look at Jota, look at Grealish, look at Rafinha from Leeds. Like, look at. I mean, West Ham aren't really a bottom half side, but look at Rice. I mean, look at Bowen. I mean, just look all across the Premier League, and even in like the mid to bottom half table, like sides. Like, look at Brentford with Ivan Toney. Like, there's so much talent. We're the best team in the world. Not team in the world. I wish United were the best team in the world. We're the best league in the world. The Premier League's the best league in the world. Look at all the talent on display. Every game can go either way. It's like a cup final. I mean, look at what Luton has been doing recently. In terms of, like, the Luton-Newcastle game just summed it up. It's the best league in the world. We should be shopping in this market. Premier League proven and high-quality football every week. We should be shopping in this market. And I think United as well have gone wrong in recruitment is, of course, you can get gems from overseas, and we should be looking in the best leagues across Europe. But where we've gone wrong is, okay, yeah, we have shopped in the Premier League on occasion, and Wan-Bissaka and Maguire haven't necessarily been that successful. But we've neglected the Premier League market, I think, for too long. Yes, there is more, you pay more, there is Premier League tax, that is obviously something that comes into it, but I do think that's something that we should be looking to do more. I mean, Arteta's done that at Arsenal, and it's worked out very, very well for them, to be honest. But on Amad Diallo, in terms of, get your votes in on who you'd rather sign, Neto or Elise. But on Amad Diallo, obviously being a right winger that hasn't really had too many minutes, that you don't want to stunt his development by buying a new right winger in. If Amad is good enough, we don't know yet because we've not seen him play a consistent run of games, but he looks quality, in my opinion. So it came out from Fabrizio Romano. Amad Diallo had positive conversation with Erik Ten Hag in January. It was crucial to prepare Amad's future involvement in Man United's squad. Club and manager want to trust Diallo, and that's why loan to Championship was never considered a realistic option in January. So Ten Hag and Amad have had this conversation about trusting and giving him a future at United, but I mean, he's not really seen a minute since, has he? I mean, I don't get why you couldn't bring him on for a little bit yesterday. And we were quite comfortable in that game. I think he does have to trust him a little bit more. But then again, like I say, Antony's in front of him. Antony's always going to be his first sub. If Garnacho's having a great game and he's on a hat-trick the way he was, he's not going to sub Garnacho. If you sub Højlund, Rashford's going to go up front because you need, Rashford's kind of the second option to Højlund right now as a striker. Some people say don't sub Højlund. He's 21 playing every minute God sends, and he's the way he plays, the work rate and the amount of energy he gives in the running, you do need to give him rest. So it's tough. But to that, I would say Ten Hag needs to give Amad a bit more time, I think. I know it's a pivotal point in the season where the team's clicking and the first thing comes first is getting a string of results. But I think Amad's good enough to come into that team and at least play 20 minutes off the bench. So I think giving him more game time is the right thing to do. But a lot of people on Twitter and in the fan base getting really hyped up on Elise and the potential of that. And it's definitely concrete because, Sir Jim and INEOS have been linked to Elise for a while now. We really have. And I know he's got a release clause. I think Romano said it's closer to the 60 million mark, which I think is a great price. But I just don't see the room for him. Rashford's going to play left wing. Garnacho can play both wings. I think he's actually the first choice winger right now on the left and the right. He's been playing on the right wing because Antony's not been good enough. And then you look to the bench and, Ten Hag said he wants to trust Amad. Antony was nearly 80 mil. We're going to have to sell a right winger if we bring in Elise in the summer. What right winger do you sell? I assume Palestri's gone after his loan, but do you sell Ahmad or do you sell Antony? And I think the majority of you guys would say, like I said at the start of the show, if Antony doesn't improve, you have to cut your losses. But that's where I'm at on that one. Who would you sign, Neto or Elise? You have 51% with Elise and 49% with Neto. So it's really interesting. Here's another one I want to ask you guys. Would you say right wing is a priority for the summer? Would you say that's a priority position? Because we keep getting linked to Elise and people keep talking about the right wing spot. For me, personally, priority is I'd bring in 2 centre-backs. I'd bring him in a midfielder. I'd bring in a striker. That's where my priorities lie. I'd think about even maybe a right-back. Diallo is doing excellently, but I think Wan-Bissaka is eventually going to move on. So for me, right wing's another little bit of a... It's one of them where I'd put it on the back burner. I get it needs to be addressed. I think we need a creative right wing. Garnacho is my first choice, by the way, right now. 100%, but obviously you need squad depth. And I don't know enough about Ahmad to say he's definitely the guy to be that option. But I sure as hell want to give him a chance over Antony at the moment and want to see him progress, because from what I've seen of him, looks good. On the left, on the left you've got Rashford, and people say, well, Garnacho's also can back up the left, and also Mount played his best football on the left at Chelsea. Mount can fill in on that left wing spot. Like, he can play there when he's back from injury. So realistically, you look at the wingers situations, I wouldn't be uncomfortable going into next season with Rashford, Garnacho, Ahmad as our options. And then, I mean, you probably would have to actually get in another winger, but you could obviously look it to the academy and bring somebody through. But there is options there. Richard says FFP will not be such an issue in the summer. Well, we have to sell as well. FFP doesn't have to be a problem. FFP does not have to be a problem. I mean, Maguire, stormer of a performance yesterday. Getting into his 30s now. He's played well this season, I don't deny it. But I still think it's probably time for him to move on, realistically, if you look at the future and where Man United need to be going. His price tag's risen this season because he's played so well. He's been great. You could get 30, 35 mil maybe for Maguire in the summer. McTominay, that's another 30 mil you could go and get in the summer. I mean, Antony, you're not going to get 80 mil for him, but you could, maybe get 25, 30 potentially. I mean, could you? You look all around that squad, and there's players to be sold. There's money to be made. Greenwood's going to go, I assume. That's money that you can bring in. Sancho, if he continues to do well at Dortmund, I doubt if Ten Hag will want him back if he's still the manager. He's another one you can make money out. You could make nearly probably 200 mil this summer off sales if you sold correctly. And people say, Beth, it's not in FIFA. How is it amongst the realms of possibility there'll be interest in Maguire, there'll be interest in McTominay, there'll be interest in Wan-Bissaka, that we've already heard, all of them three. Sancho, there'll be interest in if he continues at Dortmund. You could even sell him back to Dortmund. I mean, there's money to be made. Greenwood's apparently got interest from Spain. There's money to be made there. So we can't inflate our budget by selling well. And that's going to be a big test of the new INEOS project and who they bring in and the team of people, Omar Barada and the other members of the team that they bring in on how well do we sell in the summer. Because, of course, buying's important in recruitment, but selling's huge. And Man United's been another area that we've been terrible at for years. We never sell for more than what we've bought. I think the only player is Dan James. I think he's the only player that we've made profit on since... Was it Beckham? It was something crazy like that. Like, genuinely. So it's no, it can't be Beckham. Can't be. We definitely made profit on Ronaldo. Now I'm thinking about it. But it's rare that we make profit when it comes to Manchester United players, or it's rare that we even sell for a decent fee. So that's going to be another big factor, because that can contribute to your, especially in the strictness of financial fair play now. You need to be able to sell, and United should be able to do that this summer. There's assets to be sold for a decent price, and it's going to be a big first test of the INEOS project and how well we do sell this summer, because it's something we need to get better at, because it gives you more leeway in terms of financial fair play to recruit better talents. I mean, you get rid of, a Maguire, a McTominay and a Sancho. that gives you enough money to, like, that gives you like probably near enough up to 100 mil. You rise into that figure. That's a player that you can, a really good player you can bring in. So it's important. But yeah, everyone, that is the majority of what I'd wanted to talk about in the show. It's going to be interesting to see what direction we go down in terms of with Erik Ten Hag's new contract, and if he's going to get a new contract, if INEOS even want to continue with him. I think there'll be more clarity at the end of the season. But I think something that wasn't considered until recently is, will Ten Hag want to carry on with this project? I think he will. You know, to be the manager of Man United and hopefully under a new successful regime under Sir Jim, I think he will want to spearhead that. But it's whether he's going to get given the assurances he wants. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out for sure. And the votes are in on the Elise and Neto poll. 52% say Elise, 48% say Neto. It's interesting. Yeah, Ronaldo was the one. I completely forgot about Ronaldo. But it's rare that we sell players for profit. Last thing I wanted to mention is just a little shout out here. Ten Hag on Garnacho. I only saw this quote this morning. Even in the third game in 7 days, he is performing. This is what it means to be a Manchester United player. Again, I love that man management from Ten Hag. He's giving his young 19-year-old player credit in the media and is encouraging him to continue with that great attitude. I was very close to the pitch yesterday, and I was watching Garnacho very closely. Even when things don't go his way, even if he doesn't win a one-on-one, he gets back up, he gets back, and he works incredibly hard. He's not only hungry to score goals, but he's working incredibly hard. Okay, sometimes he doesn't get the final ball right, but he's young and it's going to come in time. I saw Anana put a great ball out to him and he sprinted the whole pitch to get there. He wasn't able to get it down and get his shot off, but the ball comes back. He's already up, he's coming back, and he doesn't let things faze him. Was a bit frustrated in the first half, didn't win a lot of his duels with Emerson, and you know he got down a little bit. He didn't win a lot of his duels with the West Ham players. He got down a little bit, and then comes out second half and he goes and scores 2 goals. His attitude's just top quality. So I think it's good that Ten Hag's given him the credit, because I think he deserves it. Mainoo's doing great, Højlund's doing great. There's some players that Diallo's another consistent performer. There's some players that are doing really well, but consistently Garnacho's been on it this season. And at 19 years old, it really is positive. Like, it's mad because he sort of like looks like the senior player in terms of out of the trio of Højlund, Garnacho and Mainoo, because he's obviously been in the team the longest, but he's still so young himself and he's developing. So it really is exciting. And people say you can't win anything with kids, but I know we've not won anything with this set of kids yet, but I think if we develop them in the right way and we build a good team around them, they've got so much potential. And that's where the excitement is with Manchester United right now. But look, everyone, I'm going to leave you to it. There's an unbelievably exciting premiere happening at 12 p.m. today. I am so excited. I wish I could tell you what it was. You're not going to be disappointed, is all I can say. It's going to be amazing. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Set your timers, set your alarm clocks. I'm going to set mine. Make sure you're ready for it. It's going to be super exciting. Please hit a like on the video. I really do appreciate it. Love this morning show. Just a good debate between the community and me about Ten Hag's future, about a massive part of our club that's been neglected for years in recruitment, and how we're going to get it back on track. And also quite a lot of positivity this morning, because we're coming off the back of a really good win, strung a few results together. The only thing that's kind of taking the shine off it is that Martinez injury. As soon as I have an update on that, I will bring it in. In fact, before I go, I'm just going to have a slight check that we've not had anything on Lisandro Martinez. I've been sent nothing yet. So as soon as we get something, that'll come out across all our socials. Make sure you follow the United Stud and everything to see the latest developments. But have a lovely week, guys. It is Monday. We've got a fresh week ahead of us. We've got Villa coming up. It's going to be a tough game, but bring it on. All the forums said we think we're going to get a win. I'm feeling positive. I'm feeling excited for the future. It's a good time to be a Man United fan on this Monday morning and get excited. There's some great stuff coming, starting with 12 p.m. today. Have a lovely day, everyone. I will see you on the next one.